Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The World Health Organization has just declared a global health emergency. We are on the precipice of the biggest bull run in Bitcoin's history. You need to forget the 4-year cycles. You need to think of Bitcoin in 10-year timeframes. Goldman Sachs, they've bought nearly $500 million in Bitcoin, as well as Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Stack and Sats. It's a presidential topic. It's a national currency now, an exceptional store of value. It is freedom money. Last night, we found out the Swiss Central Bank owns MicroStrategy. I couldn't be more pleased to bring Walker onto the show today to sit down and talk about opting out of this broken, distorted fiat money system. It was literally created to control, to enslave humanity out there. We now have an option. Walker, welcome to the show. How are you this morning, mate?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure. What I want to do straight up is bring this video of the World Health Organization has officially declared the monkeypox outbreak a global health emergency. Let's play the video. It's a 51-second clip. Let me share this tab. Let us know in the comments section how the audio is, everyone watching live. Good morning.
Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in Eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying. In addition to other outbreaks of other clades of Mpox in other parts of Africa, it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.
Wow, Walker, what do you think of that? Here we go again. Hey, that's my takeaway.
I mean, I think it's hilarious that they think that this is going to be as effective the second time around, that they think that they're going to be able to still use the same talking points, the same coordinated response, the same it's your duty, the same fear mongering that worked at the beginning last time and still works for a lot of people. Let's be honest. There are still a lot of people who, I mean, like there's this whole subsection of X that's like hashtag still masking. That blows my fucking mind.
What? It doesn't make any sense.
It's insane. But like these people, our World Health Organization, unelected leaders seem to think that they can still run by this same playbook again. But it's just not going to work as well. It has a diminishing return. Like you need to really up the ante. Like we already got the partial, scare of monkeypox. What was that? Like a year and a half, 2 years ago, they first brought this up. Was it 3 now? Fuck.
Yeah. It's gone so quick, eh?
Time flies, man. But they've already kind of tried this. Now there's a really nice rebrand underway, rebranded to Mpox, make it sound a little bit more mysterious. But it's like enough people have started to wake up that I just don't think their messaging is going to be nearly as effective anymore because people's guards are up. They're looking for this more. They're doubting more. And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, and I think it's important. And for everyone watching, whatever your beliefs are about it, if they start to come out and say, just trust the science, bro, I think that's where we should just take our time. We've now got resources, even searching on X, the media is going to call that right wing or whatever. I think if we were to go back a couple of years in history, Walker, what the left and the right don't mean what they used to anymore. Where I think the right is just, in general, there's extremes to both things, but they're just trying to cut through the noise, and the noise is so dense, they're so loud, but usually pretty on point. So I just urge everyone to question anything before they say trust the science and take this. But I feel like it's going to lead to massive amounts of money printing. I think everything's leading to massive amounts of money printing for forever. I don't think it's ever going to stop. And I'd like to, we're seeing so many people just get Bitcoin, like the Swiss and Norwegian central bank owns $64 million in MicroStrategy stock, just for one example, which is like an indirect exposure to Bitcoin. But we've seen Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, nearly $500 million in Bitcoin. I'll bring up an article here. I think the adoption's accelerating. How are you seeing like Bitcoin? Yes, it's going to go up and the cycle is going to be absolutely insane. But are you thinking about trading it or just holding on? And like, how do you approach Bitcoin? Is it to get rich in the fiat money system or just opt out of the fucking broken, excuse my language, but the broken control system that is so messed up and destroying like humanity as a whole? Or maybe you don't see it like that. Like, how do you see Bitcoin?
First of all, I'm not a trader. I'm old enough to be able to admit that I am not a good trader, certainly. And so when I buy Bitcoin, when I trade my fiat for Bitcoin, I do so with the intention of holding that Bitcoin for a long time. I also spend Bitcoin whenever I get a chance because I try not to have too much fiat. So if I need to buy things and the vendor accepts Bitcoin, I'm going to spend Bitcoin. And I think that that's a great thing to be able to do that. And people should do that. Like if you're not spending Bitcoin, you're probably still a little bit long fiat, honestly. You probably just have a little bit too much fiat clanking around, and you should probably have more of that in Bitcoin, but do whatever the fuck you want with your money. Pardon my French. I'm going to probably swear a lot on this too. So apologize. I don't know if any children listen to this, but I'm sorry in advance.
Let's just for everyone, this probably will be an R-rated episode. So if you've joined this far, thank you so much. Usually in general, I don't swear on this channel personally. It's taken a very no, just 2 seconds. It's taken like a really concentrated effort, but like from now on, like I absolutely love the swear word fuck in general. Like it's just so good, man. It's the most useful word in the world, I think, and it really drives points home. So for everyone watching, there will be a lot of F-bombs. If you've ever seen Fuck Off Friday, well, today is Fuck Off Thursday here in Australia.
Wednesday, Fuck Off Wednesday here for me in the US of A. But yeah, so back to whatever the fuck I was saying earlier. There we go. Now I know it's clear. Not a good trader. I'm honest about this with myself. Yeah. There are some people like, this goes back to like the original hodl meme. I also say hodl, not hodl. So for anyone listening who finds that offensive, I'm sorry. But it's a derivation. It's a misspelling of the word hold, not the word hauled. So it's hodl, not hodl. Anyway, Hodl. I digress. Yeah. We can agree to disagree here, but that original meme is so great. It's like you good traders can spot the highs and the lows, piff, pop, whiffy, wing, wang, like whatever, bro. And it's like, yes, I identify with that. I would much rather buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin when I need to, and use my time for productive things that allow me to acquire more Bitcoin because I'm providing value to the world, and people appreciate that value and give me value in return. Like that is a better use of my time than trying to, just buy low, sell high, bro. Like, no, if you're trading Bitcoin, 99% of you are losing. And there's some of you that are probably really fucking great traders, and more power to you. Like you have a gift. I don't have that. And most of the people listening probably don't have that either. So it's important to be honest with yourself. Like you're trading the scarcest money that's ever existed, and you're probably going to end up with less than when you started unless you're really, really good. So just be honest with yourself about it.
Yeah, that's what I talk to. Like on the show all the time, I say don't trade. But for a select group of people, even if it's 10%, the majority, that's not us. And like you were saying, man, if they do it, like, well done, good fucking job. That's absolutely amazing. But for everyone out there, like Walker's saying, this is the scarcest asset in the world. We need to trade everything for Bitcoin. What are your thoughts? Like, for Trump to come out and say Bitcoin is a strategic reserve asset, RFK, Cynthia Alumnus, all the work Dennis Porter and stuff's doing, like the political landscape even around Bitcoin shifting. And I'm not sure if it's in a good or a bad way, or it doesn't even fucking matter because Bitcoin is that resistance money. But for the masses, for the sheeple out there, like I think the Overton window really is shifting. I'm so detached here in Australia, literally the other side of the world, but it's fascinating. And we follow a lot of what you do. We're so closely tied with you, like military, financially. But like, how do you see that playing out? Did you expect for that to happen, for this to be a presidential issue? Like, now, or was it sort of like 2030 this conversation was going to come about, and is it good or bad?
I was sitting at the news desk at the Bitcoin conference last year, so in 2023, and I was privileged enough to be up there with Michael Saylor and Guy Swan and Pete Rizzo, and that was just, it's a trip drinking from the fire hose of Michael Saylor's knowledge. And one of the things he said up there, this was, again, 2023, May or whatever, he was like, the next presidential election, the politicians are going to be fighting to prove who is more pro-Bitcoin. And we have seen that exact thesis play out. They are literally fighting to see who is more pro-Bitcoin. I think if I wouldn't have had that little, bug in my ear from back then, I may have been more surprised by this. But it's sort of a natural thing that's going to happen. Like, we're talking about money here. We're talking about the scarcest money that has ever been discovered by humans. And, maybe there's another scarcer one on, Delta 42B or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of tech the green men have, but it is natural that politicians, smart ones, would identify this, not just as, oh, this is something I should pay attention to, but this is a voter block that I should pay attention to, because Bitcoiners right now already have more of a voice than they realize. But that voice, much like, number go up, like as number goes up, Bitcoiners' power goes up. We are going to be the most dominant and most influential economic, political, cultural force in the entire world in the decades to come. We're already seeing this happen with a very small group of people. Imagine, when everyone's a Bitcoiner, or when everyone has Bitcoin, then how can you possibly be against that? Like, then you're against money, you're against exchange. And some people, like some fucking communists, are, but that's a different story. Like, you're not going to help them. They've been brain dead since, Marx. So like, they're too far gone at this point. But I agree with you that regardless of what you think of Trump, this is a shift in the Overton window, as you correctly pointed out. This makes what is acceptable in political discourse completely shift. That is what the Overton window describes. What is acceptable political discourse, right? And even what I think is the best part of Trump talking about this, because personally, I think RFK has a much better handle on this. He was the first presidential candidate to accept Bitcoin donations in 2023. He had a much better handle in his speech, but Trump just talked about it. And like it or not, more people pay attention to what Trump says than what RFK says. Even if RFK has a better handle on it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
More people pay attention to Trump. So even if Trump's saying this, just saying the words Bitcoin, being at the Bitcoin conference, if that makes even just a few more people wake up and say, you know what, I'd completely ignored Bitcoin, or maybe I somehow was under a rock and I hadn't even heard of Bitcoin, but Trump's talking about this, maybe I should give it another look. I think that's a good thing, because I think those are the people that probably need Bitcoin the most, that really need it in their lives, that are feeling the pain of our broken ass fiat monetary system, of which, Trump is also a part. Like, I will say over and over again, there is no red, there is no blue, there is the state, and there is you.
Yeah.
That is not as true at a local level. I do believe that to be true at a national level, but that's a different topic. I won't digress too far there.
Have you read the Genesis book, Resistance Money?
Yeah, I've almost finished it. I started reading it before I interviewed Andrew Bailey on my show, and I like the way they put it together. I think it's well constructed. It's well written. It's just very logically laid out. It's great philosophy, for the Bitcoin era.
The reason I bring that up is because it sort of links up with what you're saying is, when politicians, it's just natural for them to talk about it because Bitcoin is the money. And going back even further in the conversation, to save and spend in Bitcoin, just using it as money, it is the most superior form of money. But I think because it's new, it takes so long to be able to understand. People just see it as like this get rich quick scheme, or magic internet money, that meme that's been around for a while. What do you think's the best way to get people to like orange pill themselves? It does, like, we can't orange pill anyone else. They need to go through and put in the proof of work, and Bitcoin's strictly proof of work. But do you think it can just happen like through one conversation or one podcast? They need to go through like 100 hours of content, 1,000 hours of content, or what? Like how have you seen people orange pill themselves, I guess?
I think for the majority of cases, someone, again, the majority, not all, but I think the general rule is that somebody is not going to be primed to be orange pilled until they have felt a sufficient amount of pain in their own life. People need to feel the pain. Pain is the best teacher. You get smart by force, not by choice, the majority of the time. And so if somebody is, living a cushy life, has no worries, inflation at this point isn't really affecting them. They're seeing their assets go up in value. They're saying, why is anyone complaining about the cost of living? Like, my house is worth double what it was 5 years ago. That person is not in a place where they're going to give a shit about Bitcoin. They're just not. Again, the rule, I think, but there are exceptions, of course, is that people genuinely need to feel the pain in order to start looking for the solution to that pain. They until they know that there is a true disease, they're not going to look for the cure to that disease. And even if that cure slaps in the face, they'll say, well, I'm not sick. Everything's fine for me. But people who feel the pain, people who see the rot in the system and experience what that rot does, those people are ready to be orange pilled. And I would agree with you also that people need to, the step needs to be made yourself. Like, somebody can give you all the information, but until you grok that yourself, until you internalize that, and then until you also until you have that ego death moment where you realize maybe everything I thought about money is false, you're not going to be ready to really go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole. And a lot of people don't even have to anymore. Now, you don't even have to grok Bitcoin at all. You're just going to be passively allocated to a Bitcoin ETF without even knowing it. So, like, good for you. Like, you're lucky. But you're also not holding real Bitcoin. You're holding some, paper copy of it. But and that's also, I think, a good thing. Bitcoin ETFs are great for the class of people who don't understand how to open a PDF. Like, that's wonderful that they can now get exposure to Bitcoin. I'm very happy for them.
Yeah. The sheeple, and I've also seen the ETFs, and I've praised them that they're good for pensions, and that's really like the value that I see for them. For everyone else, I think they should hold Bitcoin in self custody, run a node, be your own bank. Like, we've got an opportunity, as Barack Obama said, to have a Swiss bank account in your pocket. He was saying it like as a bad thing. Even my wife's like, that sounds like a fucking advertisement. Like, let's fucking go. We've got the technology to be sovereign individuals now. Like, why wouldn't you do that? But like you were saying, it does take a while to be able to get it, and people need to go through pain. Fuck, the good news, everyone, you're suffering from fucking inflation. It hurts. Everything's cost way more directly because the government's actions are printing more fucking money out there for everyone. And you can just opt out. You can just be like, see you later. It's fine. I'm just going to hold in Bitcoin. If you hold it for 5 years, it's done nothing less than a 98.8% return. The second lowest was 200% return over a 5-year period. And you can just be like, fuck it. I'm out. But I think that leads us into the conversation to you, Walker. How important is it to hold Bitcoin in self-custody? Is it not?
I mean, I would say emphatically yes, it is. Because first of all, you mentioned pensions, or you can think of 401k plans. Here, I don't know what your version of a 401k is in the
superannuation.
Yeah, okay. You can have that, and you can hold Bitcoin ETF in there if you want. If you say, I don't trust myself to hold this myself. The thing is, I find it extremely unlikely that in the course of, let's say, 20 years from now, the government is not just going to start dipping into everybody's retirement savings. I think it is, there is a better chance than not that the government starts saying, you know what, we actually need to implement an unrealized gains tax on your 401k, on your whatever your retirement savings is in your country. I think that is going to happen. It's too big of a just sitting duck for them not to go and take a chunk of. And if you're going to have all this outcry for it, people saying, yes, absolutely, tax the rich. And by the rich, we mean the people who have been putting money into their retirement savings account for, 30 years. It's not going to happen with the boomers. The boomers are going to get through this because the boomers wrote the rules and the boomers are still in charge. It'll
Yeah.
happen after the boomers start to, die off more. Sorry, I know a lot of boomers that are the absolute best people ever, but they like it or not, that generation is the one that is in charge right now. So it'll happen after they've gotten a chance to suck every last little bit of juice out of this system that they can. And then they're going to start coming for your retirement savings account. So why is it important for me to hold Bitcoin in self-custody? Because I can say to them, come and take it. Like, that's mine. You can't take it. You have to literally come to my house, and you have to not get shot by me. And you have to try and confiscate the words that I keep in my head. And odds are you're not going to do that, because if you're doing that, then we're already in like a full-blown totalitarian hellscape. And there's probably a lot bigger fish to fry than me. I haven't been around that long, So I think it is important, because that is holding your own keys, having the keys to your own Bitcoin kingdom is absolutely the only way that you are going to make sure that the wealth that you are trying to save for yourself, for your family, is unconfiscatable. Bitcoin held in an ETF, that's great. It's great that more people can get exposure to it. But if you've got that Bitcoin in an ETF in your 401k, I wouldn't really treat it as yours, because it's not. It's basically just sitting there waiting for the government to decide that they need to implement an unrealized gains tax on it and just obliterate it. But maybe I'm just being too conspiratorial. Who knows? Maybe the government has our best interest at heart, and they would never, ever, ever implement something stupid like an unrealized gains tax on your retirement savings. But I don't know.
I'm trying to find a tweet that I retweeted yesterday, but in Australia, they have been talking about within superannuation funds an unrealized capital gains tax over $3 million. What I retweeted yesterday is a bit of pushback, like, thank God for that. It's absolutely insane. But for everyone out there, whether they push back this time, the honeypot's too big. It's just too big. They're just going to see it. And they even talk about allocating the money here in Australia for military spending or whatever they want. It's like, if we're not holding the money, it's not our money. And they just choose to do whatever the fuck they want to do with it. And like you were saying, Walker, those 12, 24 words in your head as a border pass, you can just opt out. Like, if we've gone down there and they are fucking knocking on doors where you've got a gun, but you can just move and you can just take it. There's no gold, there's no physical weight to it. It's ethereal, ephemeral. And like, how are they going to stop people like that? And especially as more and more people do it. And I'm with you. Like, great for those people. Number go up. That's absolutely well done for the boomers and stuff. Maybe it's not a problem now. Maybe it's not a problem for 10, 20, 30 years. Maybe it's never ever a problem. But what if it is a fucking problem? Like, and you don't have it, like, you're fucked.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, again, maybe this doesn't happen. I hope that it doesn't. I hope that our government starts saying, you know what, maybe we don't need to be so big. Maybe we don't need to spend so much money. Maybe because we print money out of fucking thin air, we don't need to be taxing people into oblivion and making their lives even more difficult. Maybe we should let them spend that money in a productive way, because we at the government are dog shit awful at spending money in any sort of productive or efficient way. But that's really not the modus operandi of the government, is it? That's not what they do. The government expands, the state expands. This is why I say there is no red, there is no blue, there is the state, and there is you.
Yeah.
Because no matter who is president, number go up for the amount of dollars in circulation, or Australian dollars, or British pounds, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Fucking monopoly money.
They're printing more. They will always print more. They have to print more to keep this system afloat. If they do not continue printing more, the system absolutely collapses in on itself. So there's only one way the money printer goes, and that is on and up. I guess that's technically two directions, but you know what I mean. And so
I think it's always on. It's just how quick does it fucking go up?
Occasionally they put it on pause for a little. We had a decrease in M2 here in the US slightly during the last year of Biden's administration. It's now curving back on up. But that's the thing. No matter who is in power, unless they are talking about radical change and cutting pulling a Thanos move and like cutting 50% of the government like that. I think Vivek in the US proposed that idea, like just do it based on social security numbers, randomly fire 50% of the government would still work. It would probably work a lot better. You'd get rid of all the unnecessary bureaucrats. You'd get rid of half of this bloated bureaucracy, and then just keep doing that again. Basically make it like a halving cycle for the governments. But instead of cutting the block reward by half, just cut the number of fucking bureaucrats in the government by half every 4 years. I think that would do wonders. And maybe we can get a more based politician to put this as a proposal.
Maybe we can only hope. When you're talking about like the M2 money supply decreasing, maybe like sort of if we're looking like in short-term history, but if you just look at the M2 money supply, it just grows like forever. And this is why Bitcoin will literally go up forever. I guess as long as what Jeff Booth says stands true, it stays decentralized and secure. Like they're the two caveats for Bitcoin not being number go up technology for the rest of your life if you're holding self-custody. This it's just for like worthless fiat toilet paper. And people believe so strongly in the value of the dollar, whatever it is, anywhere around the world. They just fucking make it up, and they've sold everyone this giant lie. But the giant lie of like it was a lot better when it was on backed by gold. Yes, like it allowed trade and allowed humanity to be able to progress and stuff. But in the last 50 years, coming off the gold standard, what's happened now is it's just a tool to be able to control, to be able to enslave. And maybe the people in government think they have the best fucking intentions. We're going to look after everyone. We're going to feed them bugs. They're going to be happy. Nobody's going to have to own anything. They're going to be happy for it. Maybe they think all this stuff is fucking brilliant, and maybe it is for the sheep out there. But anyone I think that wants to live a dignified life has to be able to take 100% self-responsibility. And this is something I think that is massive within the Bitcoin community. But for yourself taking responsibility, Walker, congratulations on your newborn. How's that been as a journey? Like, you need to be present. This is a human life you're bringing into the world. There's both good and bad in society as a whole. I'm so grateful that we have Bitcoin. But what's the journey been in raising this human being? Like the nutrients you're feeding it, how you interact, the words that you're saying, if you're giving them a phone to be able to watch screen time or things like that. Like what's the proof of work, I guess, that you're putting into raising a Bitcoin being in the world instead of a fiat baby?
Well, first of all, I think it starts with having a fucking kick-ass wife, and my lovely wife, Carla, because if you don't have that, I mean, I don't know, she's a fucking rock star. And I think that kids need their mom.
Literally.
She is. Yeah, quite literally a rock star. That helps. I always say to him, and he's under a year old. He doesn't really know what's going on yet, but they pick up on a lot of stuff. And I always tell him, I'm like, buddy, you have no idea, man. Your mom is really cool. Like you're gonna, you're probably gonna be a dick to her when you're a teenager, but like I'm gonna put you in your place, and you're gonna realize like you hit the jackpot as far as moms go. But no, I mean, I think one of the biggest things it's made me realize is that it's made me appreciate the idea of low time preference in a much more tangible way. It's easy to read about something like that and say, oh yeah, I want to think in a low time preference way and think about the future, blah, blah, blah. But it's like a switch flips when you have a kid, and then all of a sudden you realize that, oh no, the future isn't just some amorphous blob that you can, philosophize about. No, it's a very real thing, and it's going to exist and live on because your offspring are going to live on far after you're gone. And you actually have to give a shit about that if you give a shit about your kids. And so for me, it's been this shift of trying to, grind harder, trying to produce more value, trying to be able to set myself, my family, my kids, their kids up for a future that is as good as we can possibly make it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just mean personally. That also means in a more holistic way. Like if you, okay, great. You're super rich on Bitcoin, living in a fucking totalitarian dystopia. That's still going to suck. Like you don't 100%. Want that. You don't want that at all. And so I think genuinely, every voice matters. Like people give podcasters a lot of shit, but I genuinely think that this kind of stuff matters. It's about increasing the amount of positive, pro-humanity, pro-human information, pro-Bitcoin information out there, and trying to overcome so much of the fiat garbage that is put out there. Like, until we have like a critical, until we can 51% attack the podcast space with Bitcoin podcasts, like until we've got 51% of total podcasts that are just about Bitcoin, I think we need more Bitcoin podcasts. Like, I just think it needs to happen. In a more personal sense, our kid loves hunks of steak. It was the first thing we gave him. He absolutely loved it. He has preferred it to anything else he has tried, like by a long shot. Like, it's pretty incredible. Like, and he doesn't know what it is. He just knows that it tastes better and feels better than everything else. We're planning on homeschooling our son. I myself was homeschooled up until high school.
Awesome.
And so that's another part of the plan. And I mean, I think it's for anybody who's perhaps thinking about homeschooling, I would highly recommend it. My mom was not like, she's a very smart woman, but she's not like some super genius. She's not trained as an educator. She was an English major, and she was also running, her and my dad had their own business at the time that they were running as well on the side from our house. You don't have to be a super genius or a trained educator to homeschool your kids. You just have to care about your kids. And you can do most of the schoolwork in about 2 hours of the day. The majority of time spent in public school, and I know this because I've done both. I was homeschooled through 8th grade and then went to public school throughout high school. The majority of time spent in public schools is absolutely wasted catering to the lowest common denominator of intellect. And they create that lowest common denominator of intellect by dumbing everything down. They are literally making kids dumber by assuming that they need to dumb things down. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think it's just sad. You can work with your kids. And now my mom was doing this before there was like fucking every curriculum known to man online at the click of a button. Like, she was getting curriculums in the mail. I was reading my Saxon math algebra textbook cover to cover. Like, and I turned out okay. I mean, I'm a little bit of a weirdo, but like, I think everybody in Bitcoin right now is a bit of a weirdo, and that's a good thing. But like I'm very excited for us to do that for our son and any future kids that we have, because I think that truly that early education, spending time with your kids, matters so very much. And it's just in this fiat world where I see people talk about like the cost of childcare all the time, going up with inflation. And I just think, well, if you have both parents working and one of those parents is making basically as much money as you're paying in childcare to take care of your kids for somebody else to take care of your kids, why wouldn't you just have one of you take care of your kids instead? Yes, you don't have that income, but you no longer have the expense, which is you're needing to pay somebody to take care of your kids for you. Like, it's this backwards fiat world thing that has become so normalized. And I think that's so sad. So I ranted a little bit there, but I think that early education is genuinely so important. And that is what, like, if you're not teaching your kids not what to think, but how to think, somebody else is going to teach them what to think. And I guarantee you don't want that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, they're even taking analog clocks out of school because the kids can't read them and it makes them feel dumb. That's just one example.
Oh my God.
It's fucking so stupid. But like, if a parent was just working and maybe they earn a little bit more than childcare, and they came home and they're with their kid like really intensively for 2 hours, but also starting like a fairly easy entrepreneurial side gig, whether it's doing extra little bits of ironing or something like that, that's not going to take up too much time either. They've got their 8 hours back. The kid's got an extra 4 hours back in their day, and they can do something for 2-4 hours a day in between looking after the kid. They're present with the child the whole time, that them and the kid can build something as they grow older as well. It just opens up so many things. I just feel like society wants to be looked after. They want healthcare. They want to just, like, if you're going to a job, you're building somebody else's dream. And that's fine if you're doing something else to move towards your own dream. But most people are so like worn out by the end of the day that they don't do anything and they stay there, and then the government prints more money and all their savings. If they saved $100,000 over 10 years, then the last 4 years, five years of their life was just wiped out, $50,000 in purchasing power, and this is just going to accelerate more and more and more. So if people stay like in clown world in the fiat system without any focus of having like looking after the children, moving towards something where they are just more human, like they're fucked. And I feel like the only way to be able to do that is to be able to make the most of fiat clown world, but put that into Bitcoin and just save as hard as you can in Bitcoin. And I guess that's where like my mindset's shifted lately as well. I've been doing it for a long time, saving in Bitcoin, but I still in my mind was like, I'm investing in Bitcoin for the long term. But now it's just saving in Bitcoin for the long term. And I'm doing the exact same action. Like what I'm doing hasn't changed, but just that process in my thought about it. So clown world, like it's happening, it's crazy. There's options, you know, like raising Bitcoin babies, homeschooling them, feeding them meat. That's absolutely fucking epic, Walker. And it just makes sense. We're talking before the show, as warrior people, as we're chasing down cheetahs, lions, gazelles, everything like this, the babies would have been fed the kill. Like they would have been fed meat from an early age. Like it just makes sense. But Bitcoin is like yourself, as our purchasing power grows and we come a louder voice in Bitcoin just as the money. We've got the destruction of fiat clown world right now, but on a hard money standard, I think everything gets better. Fix the money, fix the world. It's not just a meme. Like I think it's a divine truth. How do you see the world getting better on Bitcoin, and sort of over what time frame, I guess?
I don't like to speculate on timeframes, just like I don't like to speculate on price predictions. What I will say is that we know very well, like just to your point of saving, and then I'll get into the question here, but to your point of saving, it is impossible to save effectively in fiat. You just can't do it. You cannot do it. Yes, having a small cash position may be useful for when Bitcoin takes a dip, and you want to be able to smash by a larger stack than usual. But you cannot save effectively when the money is broken. So then you have to find other instruments to try and grow your purchasing power over time. And if you look at something like the S&P 500, I forget, it's returned 6 to 7% a year on average, something in that range. And that's kind of the quote gold standard for a lot of people. Like, are you hitting that benchmark? That's what various funds will use to benchmark against, to say we're beating the S&P by this much. But in reality, even if you're putting your money in the S&P and you think you're getting whatever percent it is per year, you're actually not getting anything. You're treading water, because the compound annual growth rate of the money supply is almost 7%. It's like high 6%. And so that means that every year where you think you're growing your purchasing power, the fiat dollars that you have in value of your trading account, they're going up. But you haven't actually increased your purchasing power. You've just treaded water with money supply growth. So I agree with your point about saving in Bitcoin being such a mentality shift, because you realize the money you put in Bitcoin is the money that you cannot afford to lose. It's not the money that, just what you can spare. No, for me, it's a mentality shift to say, that's the money I cannot afford to lose. That's the money I want to make sure I have as I go into the future. To the point of what does the world look like on a sound money standard? We have some examples of this, obviously, throughout history. We have, massive, you have like in Florence, you have examples of this where you have this massive renaissance. You have this even in the United States, where there was massive innovation, massive industrialization on a gold standard. Now, what does that look like going forward? What does that mean if let's hypothetically transition to a Bitcoin standard? Governments start being more fiscally responsible because they're actually benchmarking themselves against Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, following that El Salvador model of, we're just going to stack Bitcoin every day. Like El Salvador is just DCAing a Bitcoin a day. Like, that's incredible.
What
does the world look like? I think you get rid of a lot of the vaporware in the technology sphere. I think you get rid of a lot of the junk in the industrial sphere. I think you get rid of a lot of the waste, because when it comes down to it, so much of the waste and fiat destruction that we have in this world, and I mean both environmental destruction, like we create so much shit we just don't need, but people buy it because there's cheap credit available, right? And it's financed in the first place because banks have cheap credit. Like it all goes back to this rot that is just inherent in the money. And so I think if you go back to a sound money standard, I don't think you're going to get rid of fiat currencies. I don't think like every fiat currency in the world is going to disappear, at least not in my lifetime. Maybe after that. Again, don't like to make predictions too far out because I don't have a fucking crystal ball.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to continue having fiat currencies, and the ones that do survive are going to be the ones that back their currency with Bitcoin, verifiable proof of reserves in Bitcoin, to say, look, yeah, we created more fiat currency and we increased our Bitcoin holdings. So you know that our purchasing power has been maintained.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're going to see, and those are the only fiat currencies that are going to survive in the long term. But I think ultimately, what does the world look like on that standard? It looks a lot less wasteful. It looks a lot less speculative. Of course, you're still going to have speculation. That's what entrepreneurship is, right? It's speculating. You're taking a risk. You're bearing the risk. But I think that people, I think investors, I think people that are moving large amounts of money are going to be much more cautious about what kind of junk they fund when you're on a sound money standard. And I think people are going to be much more conscious individuals of what they buy, what they consume, even what they put in their bodies on a sound money standard. I think that's a natural byproduct of having less waste caused by rampant printing in the system.
Yeah. And the way that Bitcoin's secured through proof of work as well, I think adds on to this. Use a lot of electricity, a lot of energy, but we're seeing in places like Texas with ERCOT, where the Bitcoin miners are stabilizing the grid. We also see the Bitcoin community calling out, I guess, solar panels and wind farms, not because they don't create electricity. They do create energy. They're intermittent sometimes, they work selective times of the day, but them not being renewable with the blades, and they're not the best source. And we're starting to see like the conversation shift towards nuclear and stuff, which is like the most energy dense energy source that we know, like apart from the sun, but here on planet Earth. Do you see Bitcoin like playing a role in continuing to make energy more reliable, more abundant? Because this is how civilization grows. It's the only way that we grow. We need more and more energy, whether that's through food or just energy to be able to run electrical infrastructure. We've got AI. We're going to have crazy robots. Electric cars are going to just become more and more and more. It's just happening. That's the agenda. And that's all fine if we can do it in more sustainable ways. Do you reckon Bitcoin has a part to play within the energy conversation more so than what it is now?
Absolutely. And I think we're already seeing that. Like that Overton window has shifted as well. And it's like, to your point, something Gladstein has said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but like there are no rich countries that don't use a lot of energy. It's literally like you can plot this out. There's a great graph that he shared in his one of his recent presentations. If you want, like, prosperity is directly correlated to how much energy you are using as a civilization. Energy go up, prosperity grow up. This is how we have lifted so much of the world out of abject poverty, is by harnessing more and more and more energy. And I find it quite ironic that, and frankly criminal and sad, that you have these global organizations like the IMF and the World Bank, these international but based in America organizations that are really just extensions of the dollar, that are trying to tell these countries that are attempting to improve and attempting to be more prosperous, attempting to help their people, telling them, actually, poor African country, you need to be using solar panels, not the abundant oil that you have. Like, just this insanity, this neo-colonialism that's enforced by monetary colonialism, I think is just sick. I digress. But to the point of a Bitcoin future with energy abundance, I think it naturally emerges as Bitcoin continues to harness more and more and more energy. And so at a certain point, it's self-evident to Bitcoiners already. And it's becoming evident and will soon be self-evident to a lot more people. Texas is a great example of that. Pierre Rochard does a great job. love his take on things and appreciate his humor as well. He'll be like, well, electricity prices spiked because the sun set. Bitcoin miners curtailed their energy usage and were able to drop prices back down. Like, which is just a funny thing. Like, of course, because it turns out the sun sets every day, as we keep spinning around this thing. And so the fact that we now have a mechanism like Bitcoin that incentivizes build out of more energy, but also incentivizes the harnessing of energy that was previously stranded, I think is incredibly powerful. The stuff that folks like Vespine Energy and CH4 Capital, which is run by Daniel Batten, are doing with regard to harnessing landfill methane to mine Bitcoin. The stuff that, like, I don't know if you follow Hodl Tarantula, he's always posting they're capping flares and mining Bitcoin with it.
Yeah.
This is incredible stuff. Like, nobody wants methane going out into the atmosphere. You certainly don't want it anywhere near you. And I think it's a beautiful thing that there's this group of psychopathic Bitcoiners who are going out there and they're like, we're going to turn that fucking trash into literal treasure. We're going to turn that landfill into a Bitcoin mine. We're going to turn that flaming spout of methane in the middle of God only knows where into a Bitcoin mine. We're going to take whatever energy we can and mine Bitcoin with it because it's profitable for us. It's in our self-interest. And that is how society ultimately advances, by people doing smart things that are profitable for them in their own self-interest. That's how things get better, is by people figuring out they can make a profit where other people see no opportunity whatsoever. And so, yes, Bitcoin is hopefully going to incentivize a lot of nuclear build out as well, because you've got just fools like the folks in German government, not the German people. I love Germans, but the German government, dear God, shutting down fucking nuclear reactors and then firing up coal plants is just so unbelievably stupid. It hurts. Like, what are you doing?
They're trying to shut down the coal plants here and then have more wind and solar. And, there's a massive big wind farm, not so far, I don't know, 300 kilometers up the road, about a 3-hour drive, I guess. So a big state, but it doesn't really blow there that much. And then down south, like in prime agricultural farmland, they're putting all these solar panels. Like, sure, like if you want to go with the solar panel agenda, that's absolutely great. The burden has been passed on to the taxpayer because individuals, entrepreneurs aren't paying for this. The government just prints more money to be able to pay for it, deflates everyone, or increase the tax. And we've got some of the highest energy costs in the world, and they're moving from coal power, and we're the most uranium-rich nation in the world. So we could have nuclear, but because of regulation. So we've got coal, which is like, I guess, the second best here. We've got a lot of hydroelectric as well, which is better, but for the most amount of energy. But then they're putting in these unreliable energy sources only because of regulation. I think like what you were saying and how Bitcoin fixes this, as Bitcoin keeps growing and one country adopts it, like El Salvador has, and they're using geothermal, then someone like Trump looks at President Bukele and be like, oh, fuck, he's doing it. Like, I need to do it even better. And then people start putting in the proof of work, and then China, and then Russia, and then Australia. And society just quickly levels up as a whole. And I think that's how, like, fix the money, fix the world. For everyone watching, if you've got any questions for Walker, drop them in the live chat here on X and on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I will bring up Walker's banner with all his details once the show's gone. It's got a YouTube channel and an X account, as well as Bitcoin.net, was it? Bitcoinpodcast.net?
Bitcoinpodcast.net. Yeah, it's where you can find the Bitcoin podcast, which, yeah, as soon as I got the URL, I was like, well, I got to call it the Bitcoin podcast. I've got bitcoinpodcast.net. Like, it's too perfect.
Man, it's absolutely perfect. Really quickly, I do want to play a quick 50-second video of the Bitcoin Way. They're the channel sponsor. They're literally the best people in the space to be able to educate you on how to hold Bitcoin and self-custody. It's all that matters is just get your Bitcoin off the exchange today. It's the most important thing. Don't leave it there. Make sure your seed as a minimum is on steel, not paper. But I'll play this video quickly. Please drop your questions live. And with the Bitcoin Way, the first 30 minutes is free. They're always in the top of the description. A quick message about today's sponsor, the Bitcoin Way. If you still have your Bitcoin on an exchange or you're using a hardware wallet, That's not air gapped. It's not open source. Reach out to the Bitcoin way. First 30 minutes, it's free. The team has over 25 years cybersecurity experience. They can help you take your Bitcoin into self-custody. Safety Moose, the author of the Bitcoin Standard, endorses this team. They'll never touch your keys or your coins, but they'll empower you to become self-sovereign. They can teach you how to run a node, can assist with multi-sig, cybersecurity, inheritance planning, running VPNs, and so much more. And the team, they can even help you obtain a second passport. Bitcoin, it's generational wealth. Learn the skills today. I've put a link at the top of the description. And again, the first 30 minutes is free. First 30 minutes is free. That's where I got cut off. Up on screen are Walker's details. What I love about Bitcoin, Walker, is, well, first, I want to take it back a little bit. Have you read the book, The Sovereign Individual?
I have.
Bitcoin allows us now to be the sovereign individual, like just as a person, as a being, as a human on the planet. Like there are all these control systems and stuff put in place. For better or worse, they just want people to be like this, really easy, very placid, so that everything's peaceful, whatever their intention is. But with Bitcoin, it allows you to be able to totally be yourself. How do you see like the human unfolding, the awareness, maybe the spiritual shift, or how you become like the best version of yourselves? And then if anyone's got any comments or questions, drop them there.
I think one of the great things about Bitcoin is that it forces you to question everything you know about money. And once you start questioning everything you know about money, which is just such a foundational part of how our world functions, you start wondering, well, what else have I maybe not been so curious about, that I may have been wrong about, that I may have been misled about? And it leads you down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I think has many forks and many other little burrows that you can go down. And that opens up just a whole new world of questioning. And I think if something my father-in-law always says, as a guy who escaped communism, he says, in Latin, dubito ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think therefore I am. If you are not doubting, if you are not questioning, you are not actually thinking. You must doubt, you must question in order to be any. If you're not doubting and questioning, you're basically just an NPC, right? You're just running whatever loops you've been set on, and you're running them forever until the day that you die. But if you're asking questions, if you're curious, if you're doubtful, that opens up a whole new world for you. It opens up the real world. It gets you out of that matrix that you've been living in, that you've been indoctrinated within your entire life. So for me, Bitcoin is a path for human growth. It makes you ask the most fundamental questions about money. And once you realize that that's all bullshit, you get out of the cycle of Gell-Mann amnesia, which is the idea that you're reading a newspaper and you read something about a topic you know a lot about. For instance, for Bitcoiners out there, you read something about how Bitcoin is used by criminals and is burning the planet, et cetera, and you're like, I know this is a bunch of dog shit. I know it because I know all of these facts to back up exactly why it's dog shit. And then you flip the page and you go to something you're not an expert on. And you say, oh, well, this journalist must know what they're talking about. They don't. It's the exact same thing. You just don't have the knowledge to be able to refute all of the bullshit that they put out there. So I think Bitcoin helps you escape that Gell-Mann amnesia. It helps you be able to question more in your world. And again, if you're not questioning, if you're not doubting, you are not thinking. You should question things. You should doubt. That is healthy. That is how you think. Without that, again, I think that you're just living as an NPC on infinite loops that were written by someone else.
Yeah, I agree. How do you define the matrix? I define it like as just the control on every thought, action, the propaganda, the mainstream media, and whether that's good or bad, just that they jam it so far down people's throats and they control sort of every aspect. So like opting out of that matrix, what are you opting out of?
I think you're opting out of being told what to think and how to act. You're opting out of control. You're opting into freedom. And with freedom comes responsibility. And that's why so many people don't opt out of it, because it is a choice. Nobody can opt out for you. That's kind of antithetical to the point of opting out. Yeah. You have to opt out yourself. You have to make the decision, but that can be scary because it means questioning everything that you thought you knew. It means taking a leap into the somewhat unknown and realizing that maybe you don't know as much as you thought you did about how the way the world works. It means realizing that only you are going to be able to change your own future and the future of your family. It means understanding that if you do not take responsibility for that future, somebody else will. And you are living at the behest of somebody else who doesn't give a flying fuck about you. So to me, however you want to define the matrix, I think the important part is that only you can opt out of it. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody can spoon feed it to you. That's what the matrix does. You need to make the choice to doubt, to question, to opt out, to think for yourself, and to accept the personal responsibility that comes with that. And personal responsibility can be scary. It means when you fuck up, it's your fault. You can't blame someone else. But that's okay. And you're going to fuck up. We all do. I do all the time. But I hopefully learn from it, and I hopefully get better and live to fight another day and hopefully become a better version of myself, but also for my wife, for my kid, and for my family and friends. Like, that's the goal, right? Become the best version of yourself. And if you are living in the matrix, you will never be that.
Yeah. The couple of things that I took away, how powerful, Walker, is like fail forward, sort of. That's how we grow. But a saying you might like, I'm not sure if you've heard it before, is Kaizen. It's Kaizen, continuous improvement. I think that's how we grow. But like the biggest secret to what you're saying, if you are within the matrix and you fuck up and you think you can blame someone else, like, truth be told, it still is your fault. But accepting it empowers yourself, and then you can learn, you can grow from it. Whereas if you're blaming someone else, you're still fucked up, but you're not learning anything. You're not becoming any better. As we wrap up, Steve Smith's got a question just in regards to the United States government has moved 10,000 Bitcoin towards Coinbase. It looks like for custody, Samson Miles chimed in here on this. But I guess, like, I'll bring up the tweet. Even if they were to sell all of it, it actually doesn't matter. Like, it's an opportunity. While Bitcoin's at these price under $60,000 today, I'll hit refresh on the chart and bring it up. Like, all of these opportunities, Bitcoin's the most important thing possible for you to understand, to be able to study. These low prices now, some people think this is extremely expensive, $60,000. One day, whether it takes 10, 20, 30,000 years, Bitcoin is going to be 10x this, 600,000, $1 million. They can't ever stop printing money. So, like, in the short term, while there's all this volatility, I feel like we're just going through a transition forward. And this is what you were saying before, like earlier, is not trading it, of just, that's where you want to save the money that you want to keep forever. But would you have sort of like a mind frame that you see, like, in the short term, going from 74 down to 48, and then we're sitting back at 58,000 and stuff? How do you approach that mentally so that it just doesn't matter? Like, it's just numbers on a screen. It's either you get more Satoshis or you get less Satoshis, but you're still getting Satoshis.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it as, first of all, I DCA every day, because again, I'm busy trying to create value and I don't have too much time to try and time the market. I also try to do some, lump sum buys when I can. And yeah, for people out there who are maybe slightly newer to this, I just got into Bitcoin in 2020. Like, it has not been long. I haven't been around since, 2015 with a giant stack. I've just been working hard and trying to stack as much Bitcoin as I can since I realized the government was just printing oodles and goodles of money out of thin air, and they never stopped doing it in 2020. And they've been doing it for a long time before that, but that's when I finally woke up to it. But it can be scary to see, okay, it's like that meme, like, you buy Bitcoin and it crashes, right? And it always feels like that, right? Like, whenever you buy, it's going to crash, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it does feel like that. But the more you keep stacking, and the more you realize that as you zoom out, as you go to a longer time frame, as you lower your time preference, these intraday, intra-week, intra-month, intra-year moves don't really matter. Having cycle moves kind of matter, but zoom out even further. Like, do you think the price of Bitcoin will outperform every other asset denominated in fiat over the course of the next 25 years. I do. And if there's something else that's going to outperform, I don't know what it is, and I don't have nearly the confidence in it. I haven't done nearly the research into it that I've done into Bitcoin. I have confidence in Bitcoin because I've spent the time looking at it, and I know that it is inevitable. If we're simply talking about number go up, the supply of US dollars is going to double every 10 years, at least, until the dollar is dead. And that's the same or worse with every other fiat currency in the world. That number only goes up. Like the real NGU is fiat. Fiat cannot do anything but go up. Bitcoin stays the same. Bitcoin is just a measuring stick that actually works. So yes, Bitcoin can be volatile when you're expressing its price in a completely absurd metric, in an elastic measuring stick that doesn't work. So try to take a deep breath, try to produce value however you can. Try to acquire as much Bitcoin as you can. Try to spend it when you can as well. And then when you spend it, just buy some more back and replace it.
Yeah.
It's okay. And you should use Bitcoin. And there's incredibly easy ways to use Bitcoin now to spend Bitcoin. Go on Nostr, zap Bitcoin. I use the Lightning Network on Nostr every single day to send and receive Bitcoin to people I've never even met before all over the world. That's beautiful. And they can't stop it. And that's the important thing. Like you using Bitcoin, if you're saving in Bitcoin, if you're spending Bitcoin, that's using Bitcoin. However you want to use it, do whatever the fuck you want with your own money. I don't care. It's your business. But zoom out and remember that the fiat train, nothing stops this train, as Lynn Alden would meme. And that fiat train left the station a long time ago. It's not slowing down. It's not stopping. You need to save in a money that is actually a reasonable and static measuring stick, a measuring stick that you can actually use to value your time and your energy over the course of your life. And Bitcoin is the only one that can do that. So opt out of the fiat mindset and opt into a Bitcoin mindset.
I think that's probably a beautiful place to wrap it up, Walker. It's been a real pleasure, and enjoy one for me, mate. But for everyone watching, follow Walker, engage with Bitcoin content, subscribe to both channels. You're doing some really good work. The interviews, one of my favorite people or thinkers in the space is Eric Kaysen, and the podcast you and Eric did, like, man, the guy is absolutely amazing. His book, Crypto Sovereignty, it should be like, at least like read 5 other books or make it like the 5th book because it's so intense. It shouldn't be a first Bitcoin book. But for everyone that's been in for a while, check out that video with you and Kaysen. What a guy, hey? But and then your conversation with Lynn Alden, Preston Pish, American Hodl, you've had on many times. You really, Heyman, that gentleman you had on the other day, I've never heard him speak before. Like,
he's a great dude.
Oh, dude, so cool, so chill, so humble. Comes from sort of that entertainment background business. Really fascinating, but you're doing some really good work out there. And I think, like you were saying, until Bitcoin's at a 51% market share, it's so important to spread the conversation, because this is the most important thing to humanity to understand now. They can understand it whenever they want. You get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. The sooner you understand that, you've just got more time of it compounding percentage growth. Growth-wise, but it's a miracle. It's an amazing time to be here, and well done for sending that signal, Walker.
Right back at you, man, and thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Do something nice for yourself, for somebody else out there. Have a beautiful day. Be blessed. A quick message about today's sponsor, the Bitcoin Way. If you still have your Bitcoin on an exchange, or you're using a hardware wallet that's not air-gapped, it's not open source, reach out to the Bitcoin Way. First 30 minutes, it's